bring in data points to make an airfoil today. So this should be the last step for you guys, whoever in aviation is design, that you need to finish building your aircraft. So the first thing I want you guys to go is go on the internet and pull up Airfoil database. You can Google it, and this is what the website should pop up as. Name of the airfoil we're looking for is called Epler 1230. Top left-hand corner, let's search. Should be the only one that pops up here. You just click on it. This is what you should have on your screen. Let me know if everyone's caught up. Everyone's good. I just want to make sure no one's having problems. On the right-hand side, well, a lot of you guys should be learning a lot about airfoils and the lift and drag charts that you'll see at the bottom here from your aviation design class. Also in Aero 1 they go over this pretty heavy. So I'm not going to cover that though. I'm just going to cover how to actually make the airfoil and bring in the data into SolidWorks. So on the right-hand side, this other formats, hit DAT. And you're going to get a list of points. Select all these points. And hit Control C to copy them. Okay. On the right-hand side, it's yours right now. Up here is DAT. Just click on that. Okay. The name of the website is called Airfoil Database. Epler, type in the top left-hand corner, Epler 1230. Should have been the only airfoil to pop up. Okay. All right, we're going to select all these data points without the title. Control C. We're going to open Excel. I'm going to delete all these and start from the beginning. So you should have a blank Excel sheet. Give you guys a second for Excel to open up and get in there. Paste the points into any cell. When you paste them in, they're actually going to be only in one cell. So if I drag this over, you see how the second column is still in B? That's a problem. This is the reason we come into Excel, to separate them. So with everything selected, you're going to want to hit Data, Text to Column. Make sure Delimited is selected. Hit Next. And you want the symbol to separate them as our comma. So we've got to make sure the comma is selected here. Oh, and you should see a bar pop up down here when you do that. Next, and finished. Now we have two columns. Is everyone on that step? What, want me to do that whole step? You did select text to columns? Yeah. Okay. So text to columns. Delimited, you hit next. Make sure columns is checkmarked, or commas. Wow. Next, and then just finish. And it should split it up. Airfoil database. It's airfoildb.com. Epler 1230. You guys are also going to want to go ahead and open Notepad and copy and paste the points we just made in two columns. Actually, before you do that, sorry. I keep forgetting to do this step. The third column to the right, hit 0. and make it 0 all the way down by double clicking the bottom right hand corner of the cell. What you essentially made is an XYZ coordinate system. These are data points in an XYZ coordinates. So that's how we're going to import them into SolidWorks, but it needs that Z component, and everything's going to be on one plane, so the Z component should be for 0 for everything. Everyone good? Okay. Copy and paste all these points into Notepad. Save it on your desktop. And then we can close it. You can also close the Excel sheet. You don't need that anymore. We're going to open SolidWorks and make a new part. Give it 1 second to get caught up to there. Just on a desktop. Just anywhere you can get easy access to it, and desktop is easy. Just make it something that you can identify with. I need your help walking around. There's only 3 of us. We got a lot of people. Pretty much the first 2 rows on the left and those 2 groups on the right. Okay, so we are now had a new part open in SolidWorks. We're going to go ahead and import these data points. On the Features tab, go to Curves and Curves through XYZ points. Hit Browse and find that file we just had. Now it's not going to show up at first because of the filter down here. You got to open this to text files and then it should pop up. And you should get an airfoil.
Where'd you
I'm going to start from the beginning. Okay.
Features, and then it says curves.
Features, right here. Curves, drop down, curve through XYZ points. And then just find your point. It won't show up as first because it defaults to a, I believe it's a SolidWorks format for XYZ points. So you have to tell it to look for text files. Mm-hmm. And that's what you get. Now what you have is a unit length of this airfoil. Now what I mean by unit length, this could be a foot, this could be an inch, this could be a millimeter. It's 1 unit of whatever unit you pick. So right now I'm in inches, so this is a 1-inch airfoil. Chord length, that means from leading edge to trailing edge, it's 1 inch.
How did you open it again? I'm sorry.
How did I open the file? Got him. Anyone else having any issues? We're all up to this point. It is a little bit of a process to get these text data points in here. They have to be formatted a certain way. But going through Excel is probably the best way to do it. Okay. What we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead. We can't extrude this shape. And from my understanding, which could be wrong, the reason is it's an actual 3D object. So you can't extrude off this 3D object. So we have to make a sketch of this object. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new sketch off the plane it's on. And I'm just going to use the Convert Entities feature. Hit OK. That didn't work right. I'm on the wrong plane. Somehow I made a plane without even realizing it. Okay, so let's start over again. So I'm going to go, if you followed me with everything in the coordinate system, it should be the front plane it made the sketch on. So I'm going to select the front plane to make a sketch, convert entities of the object we just made, the airfoil. Hit OK. It should show up like that. It should be dark. Now one thing I've been harping on you guys about with sketches is that they're closed. Sometimes with these data points, they're not closed. So the only point it started and ended at is at the trailing edge. So let's zoom in there just to see if it's closed. And it's not. So I'm just going to throw a little arc, 3-point arc in here. Make sure you connect it. I'm going to hit OK. Now I have a closed sketch. One good. Close the sketch and go ahead and hit extrude. And that's it. You just created an airfoil. Questions?
And then you can adjust how large the curve it is.
Insert or just something?
So, like right there's fine. Okay. Hit OK. Hit exit sketch. Alright, insert that.
It disappears.
Extrude sketch. You can do 1.5
This specific thing has to pull with specific distances for that. Yeah, I don't know. I think you can change like.
Okay, guys, go ahead and try different airfoil. That's what we're going to have you guys do. Just practice this again, do different airfoil while we're here. So we can help you out. And then I'm going to show you how to use the Loft Command to make a tapered airflow.
What was the first one? Make sure to show that we're running.
That's what I thought.
It was something higher.
We've only been teaching for the numbers.
Actually, I think it was. I looked at 40.
I broke the class into 2 parts again, Carol did. So right now I want them to practice what we just showed them.
I knew it was a 6 in
Shows that. Separate from my size. So just separate from my organic social to each side.
Oh, from Excel? You go to Notepad.
So don't do separate.
save it to desktop or whatever name you want. And then you go to new part.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you go to exit sketch. Go to features. Parts. Type your XYZ. Hit browse.
We're only allowed like 200. Rotating opposite direction.
Yeah, no, his
Yeah,
units and his coordinates.
Scalar is taper and scale.
Rather than the features.
Nothing like specific. As long as it's flat.
Oh, right.
I think I want to set it so it's already on the computer.
Yeah.
Doesn't know what to go.
It's almost the same thing.
Yeah. Usually these come with
You need to worry about what
yeah, the main
you're
word is during the region we use one factual because of the
So when you import the files, they're not scaled to anything.
We have such big
So you can change the scaling in Solidworks. Usually when you
That'll be his
first
next
make a card,
yeah.
yeah, we're gonna do initial scaling next, but yeah, so you pick a place. We'll show, because what you're importing is a 1-inch span. And that's just basically, so it's just, the point that is 1 unit so that you can scale it to whatever you want.
We had the same problem.
Yeah.
You guys have a question? You guys pick another airfoil and try again?
Oh, we did not?
Yeah, I just want you guys to try another airfoil. Because like the data sometimes comes from different sites. Sometimes when you use a different airfoil, you might get a different error, you might get overlapping, you might get something. So I want you guys to just see some of the difference. You know, look up an airfoil, select one you like, and just try that. You had problems with that last time.
It's not.
I will get it up. I'll probably put a CMT video up. Yeah.
Oh, you did a 3D sketch.
Oh, I did. Yeah, you might not. You have to select the plane first before you can sketch.
Try that.
I don't know. I think so. Oh, that one didn't break. Or it did. Yes. Repair sketch. Not that much. That's fine. It's just gonna freak out. Trying to get no problem. Yeah, I should have found it by now. It's not gonna work. How does it do that? No problems found. That's how it's drawing this curve from what the hell. Yeah, it has no problem. Technically, it would be like curves.
You can do a line too.
I mean, it depends on the group.
Never seen one do that.
Yes.
The name of the class is
Oh wow. Same airfoil. So what's going on here? Is this such a small that's having trouble? Now let's just think about this for a second. If you wanted to actually build this was like your model scale, that would be like a couple of like a flood up a lot of your conditions.
What's it saying?
What's it saying? Right here. So like
Does one have
it's the places that you can make geometric conditions. And the reason being is because it has to do with how the line is this one.
this happen?
So it's like from here straight, they would be coming up like this.
As stupid as it
That
sounds.
sounds like this. Well, I can't remember exactly. I'm a mechanical. I've taken Air 1. I remember it was very important. I don't remember the exact point.
There are 2 points on top.
So you want them?
You want
it this one?
I think. Remember when we were talking about simulations? Yeah. V1 and V2?
I'm just doing this
I'm trying to explain to them that A is a problem. If you do cut this off here, it will change your conditions. So it would probably be better to pick another pair. That's what I'm,
Yeah, because that's just going to wipe off in laser cutter.
yeah. So, and the problem is having so whole front. You see when you're zooming in, it's kind of doing like this.
The reason is because
So is that what
manufacturer
is it not able to extrude?
yeah.
That's what that guy was saying.
I'm having trouble with mine on
Yeah, there's a lot of they seem to be doing that. I don't know. There's a couple people that brought up
When I try
extrude.
extruding
I think if this works, then I figured out the problem. Okay, just connect it.
Okay, I want the tip is too thin. You would never be able to manufacture that mold. It was so bad. That's pretty much the main reason why you shouldn't use it on scale aircraft is because the tip is way too thin to actually like.
You gotta remember your wings need to be like this big.
I know this is not just the way you have to make it like pieces.
As you go in, if it's not extruded, it looks together. And
Well, if we just use that airfoil,
all
we
you
just
can do
change
is
the forward, we can do this again.
At that point,
Oh,
if
yeah.
you
So,
look,
look in the example, and like for his, it started at 100 and ended at 100.
kind of go like this. Oh, so you want that one? Let's check the process. And then that kind of cleans the object. So it's not so many pieces though. We can use that. That's everything.
Yep.
That's exactly what we're doing. Good catch, Wes. Like that.
well, the end of it is one of those things where you rip off the end of the airflow, change it to
No, I'm more about it. Yeah, we're get the data point in. That 125 off. Get that in there. I'm gonna show you how to do scale. All right, let's go ahead to the next section. So everyone, go back to your Epler, the airfoil we built,
And try and get back to this, where you just have the sketch on the screen. So just delete the extrude we made, and your sketch should be unharmed. If you have a working airfoil, you can do the same with that too right now. If you have an airfoil that will extrude right now, you can use that airfoil also. Chris. Okay. All right, so the question was brought up. How do I make this not a 1-inch airfoil or a 1-foot airfoil or anything other than one? You would have to scale. So we're going to open this sketch back up. Spacebar normal 2. And right here it says move entities. I'm going to hit the drop down menu and go to scale. I'm going to select everything. And under here it's going to ask for a point to scale about. So what that means is you're scaling this object. It wants to know what part do you want to keep constant. Do you want to keep the center constant and scale around the center? On my aircraft, I want to keep the leading edge, the front of the airfoil, constant. So I'm going to go ahead and select leading edge. And I have now a 6-inch airfoil because right below it tells you the percentage you want to scale. So I'm making this 6 times bigger. So hence everything was in unit. So if you have a 2.5-inch airfoil, I just come in here and write 2.5. 2.5-inch airfoil. So that's how you get to changing your chord length. Yes?
It's not showing the second part. I don't know, the second part is
You got him, Chris?
You have to, you have to edit sketch. So click on that. Whatever sketch that is. Wait, you have to sketch already? You can use this, but you need to re-sketch it. So right now that's just the point of the data. So you have to sketch over that, convert it into thing. So you can use that Airfoil, you can already pick up. Oh, you've already done that one? Yeah. I delete the bottom. Now you can click on that. Right click that sketch. Now you should be able to scale it. Yeah. You have to do a drop down. Really picky about this is right.
That's what you're doing.
You know, so if I want to make this line a different color,
it's still technically there, it's just same place you don't want to suppress it.
yeah.
So if you suppress it, it suppresses everything.
You didn't give it anything to scale about.
That's good.
Whatever point you want. So you would select the point of the airfoil. Oh, that's your little sketch. It's like both. How much? You don't have a sketch, but you have to right click on it. Or not. Get like that, I guess. Sketch. Click the sketch. Alright, delete that one. Right click on it. Sketch. Top left. Little icon thing. Now you can add that back to it. Now you should be able to scale it.
Okay, so do you have, is there anything back here? It's just like you do need that selected. So you need everything you want to scale, because then it's only going to scale. So now you're saying, what do you want to scale about? You have this object. What do you want to hold constant in scale? So select the dot. So that's the point. That's what wants to know point. So select the point. Now the last thing is, how much do you want to scale it? Or so this is a percentage, so that's 130%. So it's 1.3. So you can just type in 6 either way. Enter. 6 inches. What's up? It's all good. Everyone's got this piece scaled? Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna hit OK, accept my scale requirements, and close the sketch. So now I have a 6-inch airfoil. Now, somebody brought up that there's another airfoil here. Is that in the sketch also? Well, one way to figure it out is select on it and look at the tree on your left here. You see how it highlighted the curve? That's our reference airfoil we first brought in when we brought those data points in. So that's not our sketch. That's just what our sketch is referencing. If you don't want to get confused with what's going on, you can actually just hide this sketch since we don't need it anymore. So now I'm going to show you a very important tool. It is a little tricky to use sometimes. It can be frustrating, but it's extremely helpful. It's called Loft, and it's how you make a tapered airfoil. So first thing we need to do, let me explain how Loft works. How a loft works is you have two shapes, a square, and then 3 feet from the square I have a circle. It takes the square and extrudes it to the circle, but it transforms the shape to a circle. Does that make sense?
If you go to the atrium and look at the jet engine, the combustion chamber was designed in Solidworks like that. We had no idea how to do that shape, so we used Loft and it did it for us.
Don't follow me on this. We're going to come back to this airfoil. I'm going to make the square and circle and show you what it looks like, just to give you a little background on what you can do. So I have a circle. So I need to make a sketch that's offset of that shape. So plane, I'll explain how to make this plane when we go to make our airfoil. We've done this before, this is nothing new, but I will go over it again. Just in case, let's say make it 20 inches away, and now I'm gonna just make a square. Make it a rectangle for interesting. Okay. So now I have these two shapes. Now I'm going to utilize the Loft command. It's up here, and there's a loft and a loft cut. Now I'm not going to show you the loft cut today, but the loft cut works exactly like the loft. Like tools you've seen in the past, extrude and extrude cut work exactly the same way. Loft and loft cut is just adding and removing material. That's the only difference between the two. So I'm going to go to loft. So loft is here, and loft cut is over in the cut areas on the right, on the center of the screen. So, come on. Loft. The first thing it wants is profiles. So what outer shape am I going to loft? Oh, I wanted to do the circle, and the second one I want to go to is the box. And okay, and that's what it does. So that's the power of Loft. It's a very difficult command to use for more complex shapes, but it's worth using. It definitely saves you a lot of time. So now we're going to go back to the airfoil. We'll use this command to make a tapered airfoil. So first thing you want to do is we want to make that reference geometry. So the reference plane. So down to reference geometry, drop down the plane. We're going to select the plane our first drawing was on, our first sketch. And then we're going to want to offset it. I'm going to do mine about 24 inches. So I'm going to make a sketch on that plane we just made. I'm going to go to the normal view, and I'm going to convert our airfoil in. Just like we did on the first step. We're just convert entities, making the airfoil, making that sketch now on ours. One thing it probably didn't do, it probably didn't bring in that little tail, so I'm going to convert that over too. No, I set a distance. On the left-hand side under, I'll go back to that because that's important. Down here, I set a distance. There's different ways you can define a plane. Right now, I'm just using offset. So now I have this sketch. And it's the exact same shape as the other one, but we want to make a tapered airfoil. So the first way I'm going to make the tapered airfoil is I'm going to leave the leading edge constant. What that means is the leading edge will be a straight line. The trailing edge is where all your taper is going to come from. So Same thing, go to Scale Entities, select the entire airfoil, select your point, and select how much we want to scale it down. Now here's where it gets tricky. We are at 6 inches, right? So if I times 6 inches by 2.5, it's going to put me, what, at 15, 16 inches? So I don't want that. I want to go the opposite way. I want to go to a 1-inch airfoil. So there's 2 ways I can do this. I can actually do the math here and figure out what the percentage is of decrease, or I can open that curve back up. I'm going to delete the sketch I made and just use that. So let's not use 1. I'm sorry, I'm going back here, but we're going to select our original curve we brought in. So that's at 1 inch. So we're going to go in there and use that instead, because that's easier to scale off of, because it's at 1. Anything you times by 1 will be whatever you times it by. So it's less math involved and less chances to make a mistake. Now I'm going to scale it up to, let's just make it at 2 inches so it's not the same. So select the entire object, select the point, and the amount you want to scale. So I just want to scale this one to 2. It's not right. I must have did 4 in the first one, not 6. All right, close the sketch. I'm going to hide this curve again just so there's no confusion. Now we're going to look at our sketches here, and we're going to use the Loft command. Before we go into that, I want to make sure everyone has this on their screen.
Oh, okay. So
You gotta close the end on it first. There's an end here. Make sure you close the end. Okay. So then now you can scale. So the bigger one. Okay, so like I was explaining, if you do the bigger one, you have to go, I think I set mine at 4. So I have to go from 4 inches. And what percentage decrease do I have to go to get to 1 inch? A little bit of math involved, right? Not hard, but a little bit of math. It's easier for me to go back to my original, which is 1 inch, and just times it up. Does that make sense? And that's why I went back the other way. I wanted to show you the wrong way. I actually do my thing. Is that always sketch? No, that's such a nice sketch.
the units and the distance between it.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah, you put it again, so you got that. Yeah, so yeah, double. There you go.
Okay, select the plane 2. Start a new sketch.
Yeah, that's my main thing.
Oh, so you created the original plan.
Now go to, this is actually a good view because you're actually going to see what's happening here.
So now I'll go to
Pull it down just a little bit.
new sketch.
Okay. Now go to convert entity. Select the airfoil. It projects that onto your surface as per how you're looking at it. So look at it normal, they're going to overlap. So it projects it directly onto your surface. So now you can scale it. Make sure your tail is close.
So like behind it. So it's that
Percentage. So now you're trying to go down.
the enemy's here. So
Okay, so yeah, tape them. I wanted to show you guys tape them. Because if it was the same, you could just use it. Yeah, you can scale that one. However you want. If I want to go to it the accurate way, I would actually use the curve and scale it because it's at 1. It's just easier to do the math. Well, if I want to go from 1 to 2, I have to increase 1.
so now you want to scale. So
Okay.
So now once you scale, you get, there you go. So now you can, yeah, that's probably like, there you go. I would need I would make a plane. What I would do is make a plane and now click your front. So open up this one. Click front. There you go. Now you got the options. That's the number of planes. Okay. Basically your distance. It's up to you. Nice. Oh, you don't have. What's this sketch? What's going on here? Whoa. You should have it. Edit this one. Oh, this is all in one sketch. No. So pick whichever one you want. This one probably. And what's this? Also part of the sketch? Oh, it's okay, that's fine. So now, so go to normal. Alright, perfect. So now what you want to do, actually, I'll write this curve and just hide it, just because it's not going to off here. So now, yes, exactly. Now you want to type in the entities. Yes, exactly. So you see what that just did right there? Well, it hasn't done anything yet. Do you see what that did? I'll take this one. Alright, so now you can exit this sketch. And now just rotate to see that they should be, yeah, perfect. They should be far away from each other. Now we gotta scale this. Perfect. Yeah. Alright, so now scale. You go here, and then you go scale, and then entity, so click everything. And then scale about, I would click the leading edge first. And then factor, you want to make it smaller. You made it bigger right there. You can make it bigger, it really doesn't matter. It's just like, you're just gonna look at it like you're gonna want something. Like say you want to taper your wings, like you would want the bigger side to be the size of the fuselage. Take the top. So either way, it works. Actually, like you, I deleted this whole frame by doing earlier on accident. Wait, make sure you're filling everything. How many notes get dropped? The other one? So you can make it bigger or smaller.
I think it's something wrong. Most likely. He just clicked in a straight line.
And even the dot. You're like, oh, it's bad for
Usually usually when you import something from a database,
Just make sure I'm out.
You're right. You didn't change any dimensions? Yeah. Oh, that's fine. As soon as it goes off of what is going on in that base. If you change it, it'll base it off whatever it is. And especially, so like, say you started inches, right? And you imported it, it would be 1 inch. But if you started in millimeters, it would be 1 millimeter. I imported it in 1 inch. But it's starting off at 1.
He's actually a cool semester. Let me just. What I download or get happen at all. Yeah, we have well, I have
There's nothing wrong with these sketches. So now click
well, you need it to solid.
this is all so just playing this all set of the original so now it's starting to sketch. I'll just play. Alright, so now what you're gonna do is convert on these. And click there. So that's doing now keep in mind that if you have fixed rounds, you're gonna have to fix it. So just convert I would normally
caught up?
Yours does not work. I didn't really see it.
I'm at normal.
I want to make sure everyone had that. Alright, let's go ahead and do the Loft Command. Alright, so this is the last tool I'm going to show you guys for this workshop this semester. It's the Loft Command. Very important. Like I said, this is how you're going to achieve all your tapers or different types of shapes of shifting your root and your tip of your airfoils and your wings. So what you do is you hit Feature and you hit Loft. Now the first one that says Profile, it wants to know what sketches is it going to use for the outer profile of this loft. I'm going to select this one and I'm going to select this one. And it creates a loft. Now seeing that first time is rare. The setup of these sketches are very important. One of the reasons I stopped to make sure everyone had this correct. If this doesn't preview, that means it's not going to work. Sometimes even if it previews, it won't work. Yes?
So what's the difference between using this and extrude?
The difference between
Using this and extrude. Like when does this when does it do?
So I'll show you. So I have my loft. I'm going to hit OK. Look at the top of this wing. Oh, you really can't tell. I'm going to make this more extreme so it's a noticeable change. I'm just going to make the outer airfoil smaller. Now to go down, you would be any number below 1 percentage. Okay. Okay. See what that did? It gave me a taper in the airfoil, so it trimmed it in. Now if I were to try to do this with an extrude, so if I try to come on this side, and I extrude, now I can even try, remember we played with that draft a little bit where it kind of like changed the angle. It's kind of hard to do that on this airfoil because I'm at 1 degree right now and it failed. See, it's not previewing, so that means it's failing. So what happens is your lines are so close, your surfaces, when it starts to angle in, it overlaps, and that overlapping, it will fail the tool. So it won't even allow you to do that because it's overlapping. So that's the difference, is you can only consider constant chord extrudes for a wing when using extrude. So that's a loft. Just a helpful hint, when I was in the loft tool, did you notice these circles right here? The green circles. Those 2 points are saying, it's probably better to show you on something else. Don't follow me, I'm just going to make a basic loft to help explain the idea of what's going on. Okay, so what I did was I just made two squares exactly the same, and I'm going to loft it. You can achieve the exact same thing with an extrude. But you can't do this with an extrude. Okay, now I was showing you what these circles do. Now it's better to explain this on a square object. So it takes a corner or an end point, and that's where it's going to translate to the next two on the next one. So if I want this to make this look like an extrude, hold this circle and I'm going to drag it to that side. So now it's going from this corner to this corner. As opposed to if I bring it back down here, it's going to have to twist it to get to that corner. So if you follow this line, it follows all the way around to this corner. And that's where you get that twisting motion from. So those lines dictate how the loft profile works. And that's pretty much all I have for you guys. Any questions? Anyone having problems with the loft? It is a very tricky tool. Sometimes it does not like to work.
What's guide curves do?
Guide curves. Okay. So if you have, they're a little bit more difficult. What they do is, see this line between the two circles? From my understanding, you can make a 3D sketch in 3D space. And instead of just saying point to point, you can say, I want you to follow this guide. So instead of it being a straight line, you could have it curved a little bit. I say, I want you to loft with this corner kind of following this guide. They're a little bit more tricky to do. I'm still having issues with some. I wanted to show you how to do it, but I couldn't get my practice model to work today, so I didn't want to go into it if I could try on this. So what I was saying, if you come in up here to sketch, just watch me on this. This is something I don't want you guys to practice right now. Practice at home on the videos and all that. So drop down, you can actually go to a 3D sketch. So I'm in 3D space, I'm going to select a line. Actually, I'm going to select an arc. And you see right there next to my little pencil on the screen, it says XY. 3D sketch is a little bit more difficult. You have to understand which plane you're in. So I'm sketching in respect to the XY plane. If you hit tab, it changes your plane to YZ to ZX. So what I want to be sketching in right now is this one, ZX. So I select this point, and I'm going to make a slight curve in there. Now supposedly this works like this. And this might fail because this is a very tricky tool to get to work. So I'm giving you the pretense now. Okay, so straight extrude, select a guide curve in there, and it will do that. So it kind of gives you a guided path too. Now if I were to put another guide one on the other side, curving in, it would actually shrink it and then bring it back out. But since you only give it one guide path, that's what it's only following. So. Okay. Any questions? Having problems with the lofts? Yeah, what's up? Okay. You would want to do an assembly. What you can do is a visual schedules for these. Okay. Have you played with the assemblies yet? Yeah. Yeah, you would run each one. There are some tricks you can use to make. What I would do is the biggest rib I have, the smallest rib I have. Put the assembly together and spacing how far I want it. So I have two parts in my assembly, spaced exactly how far apart I want it. You can make a new part in your assembly. Reference those ribs. Does that make sense? So that might be a trick to get around that. How much you need space. Another thing is these the percentages I saw. I went this percentage of the wing was 25% right now for this ring, but I dropped what's 25% of my difference. So you if you go 25% of the length from here to here, 25% of the total length, you're going to drop 25% of this difference. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's just a mathematical way of doing it. So there's multiple ways of doing it. You can also use what's called family tables. Look into those. Those are really helpful. And what family tables do, instead of making each one of these individually, you actually make one, and you call this chord or C, right? And you say, I want C1, A1, A2, A3. Make an Excel sheet, and you would have like your different lengths. C, say you had like a little hole here, you have the dimensions of this hole, we call that H. Right? So you have C, H. You would say for the first rib, you want this distance. For the second rib, you want this distance. And you go for all the ribs you want. And after that, you bring in the one part into your assembly, and you can just make multiple parts, improve the same part, and you can change it. So you can say in the part assembly, it's a little confusing, but once you start playing with it, you can see it. In the part assembly, you can actually say, I want this to be A2, not A1. It'll change everything to A2 dimensions. So you make a master, you dimension it by names almost, and then you make a whole bunch of child dimensions off of it. So you bring in the parent to the assembly, the master airfoil, and then you tell it which version of that you want it to be. So you just bring in multiple masters and you change the versions on each one. They're called family tables. Very useful in making repetitive parts that are slightly different. Can I what? Sketch. Drop. So you're in a sketch right now, so you have to exit the sketch you're in. Drop down on that. No, sketch. Drop down feature under sketch. Go to 3D sketch. I had problems with the airfoil and the curved lines working. I was going to show you that, but it didn't work real well with the airfoil. So.
That's how you get good cat. Seriously.
Yeah, I used to, in high school, I we had a learning program called Adventures.
I used to
We had to do projects. Yeah. So like, once you get the basics from it, it's like most of the rest of the stuff is just you just play around with it.
Exactly.
How did you get
Exactly. And it's still like that's the best way to learn is just playing around with it. It's like making random stuff just to see how the command would work.
It's frustrating when you just play around with it.
Everything's frustrating.